Hey guys, so one thing that we like to do here at The Point is make sure that we not only listen to the points that our panelists make, but the points that you guys make in the comments section. We do want to engage with you, and we do want to reply to some of the best comments that are put out there, so that's exactly what we're going to do right now. So let's take a look at the first one by Larry Pishman. We asked the question, if you were a lawmaker, which law would you implement? Now that was in a story that we did about iPhone cases that could kill you. It was basically the iPhone case that was shaped like a gun, which is a terrible idea. Here's what Larry had to say. I think I'd impose a global population control treaty where every country would be required to limit the birth rate to about 73% of the death rate until the world population dropped below 5 billion. Now, Larry, I can definitely understand your concern about overpopulation, but let me also point out that this could have terrible consequences. Right now, China is in a lot of trouble because of their one-child policy. If you look at the male population versus the female population, they have much more males in the country as opposed to females because people are having abortions to ensure that they only have male children who can pass on the last name. So that's had a really negative impact on their population, and now they're trying to find ways to mitigate it. And so even though your concern is a valid one, I think the execution of solving it is really important, and it is a delicate balance, and I don't know if going about it your way is the best idea, but I do appreciate you writing in and sharing your thoughts. Also, we asked the question, what future technology are you fearful of? We asked that question when we were doing a story about women getting abortion advice via webcams. And Tyler Valentine actually made a really great point that I can relate to. He says, I'm most fearful of some of the ignorant things I've said online that may come back to bite me when I become a more successful actor. Iggy Azalea is still getting hate from her old tweets. I hope I don't have to deal with my reputation being damaged based on what I said in a moment of pure anger and stupidity. Tyler, I cannot agree with you more. I think we have to accept the fact that we're all humans, we all make mistakes, we have a lapse in judgment time to time, and that could lead us to say and do things that are not representative of who we are as people. And it's important to not be too hard on yourself, but also at the same time understanding when you're wrong and being willing to open yourself up to different perspectives and apologize when you have made a mistake. And I like the fact that you're aware of this, and don't attack back when someone attacks you. I learned that the hard way, and just use it as a learning experience. All right, next comment came from someone who wanted to answer, which double standard bothers you the most? This was a story where we talked about gender equality and how in some cases it can really be an epic fail. Thomas 117 says, the double standard that exists with sexual and domestic violence. There is next to no resources for male victims of those. Hell, in cases where the woman initiates the violence and male acts in self-defense, he ends up getting punished by the law. I think Thomas makes a really great point. So you guys know about the MRA movement. We have talked about it a little bit on the Young Turks, and there are legitimate arguments made by those in the movement when it comes to men getting raped and not having the resources to get help as a result of that, or men having to deal with unfair alimony rulings or child support rulings. And so those are issues that we have to really come forward and talk about, because it's unfair to think that all these gender equality issues only impact women. They impact men as well. Men are not taken as seriously when they're victims of domestic violence or rape. But at the same time, I think that we need to look at our own justice system and hold prosecutors accountable, because a lot of times prosecutors will go after male offenders of sexual assault or domestic violence, but they don't do the same for women. We recently did a story on the Young Turks where there was a college football player at a bar. There was a woman who was very aggressive with him. He tried to grab her hands as she was trying to punch him in the face, and then at one point she almost successfully punches him in the face, and then he had enough, and then he punched her back. He faced assault charges, she did not, and that's unfair. And I really encourage you guys to take a look at that video on youtube.com/theyoungturks. All right, final answer from you guys that I loved. Kylie Jenner's cornrows spark a race debate. This was a discussion about cultural appropriation and whether or not it's a real issue. We asked, have you ever embraced the style of another culture at some point in your life? Well, here's what Sebastian had to say about it. Cultural appropriation is such an idiotic concept because culture is a fluid, constantly evolving thing. Sometimes something becomes fashionable among one demographic before it bleeds into others, but that does not mean you have to fight for those who happen to do it first. He also says you can wear a suit without bowing to the establishment and drive a Harley without praising Hell's Angels. You can listen to Sweet Home Alabama without flying a Confederate flag, and you can get dreadlocks without smoking weed. You can also get high without being nostalgic about Woodstock or listen to Wagner without any sympathy for German nationalism. You can be a black hipster or a white fan of R&B. Now, I half agree with Sebastian. One thing that I think doesn't get enough attention is the fact that cultural appropriation is an issue. So when you have certain people that like to celebrate black music or black culture or black, styles, that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's also important that that person also celebrates black people. And unfortunately, in today's society, while we like to celebrate all the things that the culture brings to the table, there's discrimination and institutional racism that still exists, and a lot of people are unwilling to speak out about it. So I think that there's a legitimate point being made there. Now, when it comes to the issue of Kylie Jenner, I was on the record on this, and I haven't really changed my opinion. Kylie Jenner put her hair in cornrows. I wasn't offended by it. I think that there are better examples of cultural appropriation that we should focus on. If Kylie Jenner was terrible toward black people or didn't like black people, I think that she would be a good example, but she has never said anything unsupportive of black people, and that's the reason why I have that opinion about that particular story. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for writing in. I'm amazed and extremely happy at how intelligent and open-minded you guys are. Thank you for engaging with us and sharing your thoughts. We do love hearing from you. We do read your comments. And as I always say, never be afraid to make your point.